what are ghost engineers? We need to talk about this. We need to talk about the fact that we're doing this all again. The media has gone mad. There's a bunch of articles being written throughout the tech press. I've seen Business Insider. It's going to start going to the mainstream media about ghost engineers and how engineers aren't working. And this is a repeat of exactly the same problem we saw when the media doesn't understand anything about what engineers do. I talked about this in my video about Twitter and why Twitter didn't fail the way people expected Twitter to fail. And it was deeply frustrating then. It was deeply frustrating that mainstream media and supposed tech outlets and Business Insider and various other publications that portray themselves as talking about what's happening in tech, what's happening in engineering, do not understand what's happening. So behind all of this, a presentation came out from a Stanford MBA talking about how something close to 10% of engineers do no work. And you might think that's weird. Or perhaps that's true. I'm not sure. This is a prejudice-based thing. I've worked in scale tech, and that sounds like a pretty stupid thing to assert. Effective? Yes. No work? No. What's actually happening here? Well, I went and had a look, and what no work means is no or very few commits. So let's talk about what that actually means. An engineer has one of many different roles. Some of them are trying to figure out what a product should be. They're building little experiments. They're testing things with people. Some of them are actively, furiously developing a feature for a new thing. That's where most code is developed. Almost all the people waiting to write lots of code are building a new feature right now. There's going to be a feature tomorrow that wasn't here today, or the feature is going to be radically different. That's probably one of the most fun parts of being in tech. Lots of products then exist for a long time. They don't get as many new features, or the features they do get are slowed down because of complexity, and now these features have to interact with all the rest of the body of the system, and so the work is slower. They need to make sure that a new thing doesn't break all of their existing users, that doesn't cause search results to be worse for all the existing cases, and so they're working through this stuff. Those always naturally goes slower. That's why it's easier to be a startup with 10 people to build your first product than it is to be able to get the next 50,000 on top of a million user product, or the next million on top of a billion user product. Is really, really hard to do that stuff when you start to get saturation, which is why scale tech is, the economics of scale tech are what they are. So we have no mention of that life cycle and no mention of the life cycle of different engineers. Okay, here's a job. If you're a junior engineer, I expect you're probably writing code most of the time. Why is that? It's not because junior engineers are particularly awesome at writing code. We're hoping they get better at it. For the most part, they're not. But because they don't have the background or capacity to be across what needs to happen in big product decisions, in experiments about what happens to users. In most cases, if they're working on that, they're working on that with the very, very close direction of a more senior, more experienced engineer or a product manager who can lean into that aspect of what has to happen and direct exactly the work that they do. So they get to work on this. So they're generating lots of code. That's awesome. Next level up, more senior engineers are going to be generating code, maybe a little more thoughtfully, maybe on bigger things. They will work on more impactful things, but perhaps less flat out code. The next level up, a senior engineering level at most things, that's going to be a tech lead. They will write some code. They'll probably be grumpy that they can't code as much as they'd like. They're going to be spending a lot more time reviewing people's code. They're going to be spending a lot more time writing the design for the next thing that's going to happen, or figuring out what the problems actually are. The next level above that is staff. Aren't usually spending most of their time writing code on a single product anymore. They're spending their time across multiple products trying to understand how the interactions between different systems and different products are going to actually make things hard, clearing those out of the way. They'll write some code, they won't write as much. They'll spend a lot more time in design docs. They'll spend a lot more time mentoring and coaching people. The next level up, we start to have principal, we start to have distinguished engineers. They will spend almost no time on code. And one of the very non-obvious things about being promoted through these levels is as someone that has gone through that process and those promotion chains, as someone who has mentored many people as a manager or as a mentoring peer of the people in those transitions, we need to go to someone that's being promoted up to a level and actually remind them that your job isn't just to write lots of code anymore. If that is what you are doing, you're doing the wrong job. Your job is to make it so the right code gets written and make it so the product works and makes it so the whole engineering group is able to be more effective and capable. That might be a refactor you work on for a long time to clear things out of the way. That might be the decision about what framework to jump onto next, or when it makes sense to migrate off some legacy system onto a new system and actually make those sorts of big directional changes. That's your job. Your job isn't writing code. And so now we have a numpty MBA with a Canva description of a probably non-existent paper, who is, to my mind, desperately currying favor from the VC firms, from the various deeply inept CEOs eager to find some other excuse to lay off a bunch of people so their personal stock worth goes up, because numbers go up. Wall Street loves layoffs because costs go down, and Wall Street has the attention span of a demented chicken and can't understand that, just like I explained in my Twitter video, if you lay off big chunks of engineers, nothing fails today. But what you just did is you ate your seed corn. You hollowed out that body of engineers that are working on your product a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, finding the foundations of what your business is going to do next. You're guaranteeing that your business is weaker 3 years from now by this rampaging layoff, simply so you can get a higher stock value and your bonus will be worth more this year. This is incredibly short-sighted, and this supposed MBA is pitching directly into that insanity of, it doesn't matter if I lay these people off, what do they do anyway? I'm an important CEO, I create all the value for the company. What do the tech workers do? This is dangerous, this is short-sighted, and this is incredibly disappointing. I am hoping that Stanford work on trying to ameliorate that message, that they actually reach out, but I suspect it's too late, because the same tech journalists that couldn't figure out why Twitter broke, and I've just video on Twitter here, right, and explain what people do there, why Twitter didn't break when Elon fired all the people, explaining why they don't understand how tech actually works, isn't going to be part of the over. Instead, they're just going to crow about how we should lay off another 10% of engineers. It is quite likely that 10% of your engineering population isn't being particularly effective right now. They will be spread all out, they'll be uniform. But performance management aside, people that desperately can't actually cope, and by the way, this is why I talked about why big tech up here, actually does in algorithm interview questions. It's really important. Those sorts of skills are occasionally extremely important in scale tech, which is why the interviews are the way they are. Leaving aside people that simply cannot do the job, that 10% of people are the people who are a little burnt out, who have a new kid at home, or they're not sleeping well, they have some other thing happening in their life, or they're just in a natural cycle where right now the project they're working on isn't actually so awesome. And it's just in sort of maintenance mode and they're kind of cruising for a little bit. Everybody's career goes through these sorts of peaks and troughs. And the reason that it would be literally insane to basically find that 10% of less productive people and lay them off is that a year from now, apart from the people that can't do the job, a small proportion, it'll be 10% and it'll be a different 10% of people. And I say this as someone who's been an engineering manager for a long time. People go through cycles. If you fire the people who are not productive today, then you will be firing the people who are going to actually be very productive 2 years from now. And the people who were not going to be productive then are just going to form a proportionally larger portion of your workplace. I've seen the theory, this is an Amazon thing, that if you hire really fast, then it's okay to fire your low performers because you haven't put any real effort into your hiring process and you're expecting to have lots and lots of bad hires. This is terrifying and horrifying and terrible and horrible, but it's a perspective, I suppose, and some organizations require the bottom 5% to be fit. GE, famously, an organization that has now vanished into irrelevance, and so go GE, working really well for you, right? Amazon, among other companies, does this, and they do it so that they can feel less bad about hiring really fast and having people perhaps mishired into the wrong situations. Okay, that's the perspective. The problem is if you do not couple this with an aggressive commitment to everyone who could do the job but just needs a little tuning, a little help, a little uplift and growth to get there in your org, then all of these constant layoffs do is just create a culture of fear and uncertainty, and that actually reduces the productivity of people. The most productive people are the people that are not there paranoid to make sure they're working on the project that's not going to get cancelled this week. They're the ones that aren't frantically trying to make sure that they and they alone are the one that really stands out as being the amazing performer. Because if you have an engineering population that is not deeply committed to working as a group and making sure that everyone gets helped and making sure that people are willing to help each other, then I guarantee to you, you will have a deeply ineffective engineering organization. And guess what these layoffs have done? These layoffs have struck right to the heart of that morale, that camaraderie, that engineering group, like the general stuff lifts all boats and engineering working together. That is a culture you need in order to have effective engineers. So congratulations, you've made it worse. And congratulations, MBA, you've given terrible people an excuse to make it worse. Oh, it's just deeply frustrating. Anyway, I hope someone gets ahead of this and tries to get hold of the journalists, but I fear it's too late. The journalists don't understand and they're just after clickbait. So, what can I tell you? I'm going to be putting together a bunch of videos that are coming on how to improve your tech career, how to get into a tech career, why you shouldn't be worried about the rise of AI destroying tech careers, or at least not the interesting ones. I'm going to keep doing a succession of videos. If you have questions about what any of this would be, drop a comment below and I'll take those as guidance as to which order to produce the next videos I've got in the queue. I actually had something else that I'm working on about advice to current CS students, but that's going to come out later because this is an emergency video podcast, if such a thing could even be said to exist. So stay well, have fun, I'll catch you later.